September 12, 2023. 2:47 p.m. Kendra Miles had 90 seconds. Maybe less. 37 video files were copying to a USB drive. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her phone. On the laptop screen in front of her, footage of her own bedroom. Her own body. Unconscious. With men she'd never met. 68%. 73%. Downstairs, the garage door groaned open. Keys hit the counter. "Babe? You home?" Her husband's voice drifted up the stairs. The same voice that had brought her chamomile tea every Thursday for 7 months. The same hands that had tucked her into bed. The same man who had been drugging her, filming her, and selling access to her unconscious body for $400 a session. 89%. 94%. His footsteps started up the stairs. This is the story of how Kendra Miles discovered the truth. And how she chose to survive it.
Welcome to True Crime Story Files. Real people, real crimes, real consequences, because every story matters. Subscribe now, turn on the bell, and step inside the world where truth meets tragedy.
14 months earlier. July 2022. Kendra Miles stood in her sun-soaked kitchen, measuring coffee beans on a small scale. 22 grams exactly. She pressed the plunger down on her French press while Miles Davis played on vinyl, kind of blue, always kind of blue. This was ritual. This was control. This was who she was. At 34, she worked as a marketing manager at a mid-size firm in downtown Houston. She was the woman who presented campaign strategies to rooms full of men twice her age, and they actually listened. Her colleagues respected her precision. Her apartment reflected it too, color-coded file folders, alphabetically organized spice rack. These weren't quirks. They were anchors. Small controls that made her feel capable in a world that constantly reminded women they weren't quite enough. Her friends saw someone who had her life together. Diane, her best friend since college, would joke that Kendra was the only person she knew who actually enjoyed grocery shopping because she had a system. On Friday wine nights, Diane could make her laugh so hard that Pinot Grigio came out her nose. Those nights, Kendra felt like the version of herself she was supposed to be. She'd been married to Elias Miles for 8 years. He was a mechanical engineer, quiet, methodical, organized in ways that matched her own need for order. Their friends called them the stable couple. The ones who never fought at dinner parties. The ones who finished each other's sentences. Elias would leave notes on the kitchen counter when his meetings ran late. "Ordered your favorite Thai. See you at 9. Kendra would fold his shirts the way he liked them, with the sleeves tucked just so. She anticipated his needs before he voiced them. To her, that's what love looked like. Noticing. Adjusting. Making everything smooth. But there were cracks she didn't want to see. Her mother had died 3 years earlier. Ovarian cancer at 56 years old. Kendra inherited the French press, the Miles Davis records, and the habit of making everything just so, because chaos felt like drowning, and control felt like survival. After her mother's death, she held on tighter to everything. Every routine became sacred. Every small ritual became proof she was still functioning. Then came the failure that broke something inside her she didn't know how to fix. The previous year, they'd tried IVF. 3 rounds. $30,000. 0 pregnancies. Kendra packed away the baby clothes she'd bought too early, tiny onesies with ducks on them, still folded in tissue paper. Elias stood in the doorway of what was supposed to be the nursery, silent. His face was unreadable, the way it always was when things got hard. And Kendra apologized. She actually apologized to him. Her body had failed. She said sorry, like it was something she'd done wrong on purpose. That's who she was. Someone whose entire identity was built on being good enough. Good enough wife. Good enough daughter. Good enough woman. When she failed, she erased herself to keep the peace. She made herself smaller so everyone else could stay comfortable. Every night after the IVF failed, Elias started bringing her chamomile tea. Always in the same blue ceramic mug her mother had given her, the one with the small crack in the handle that Kendra refused to throw away. To help you relax, he'd say, setting it on her nightstand. You work so hard. And she drank it because he was being thoughtful. Because that's what good wives do. They accept care. They don't question kindness. That was before the exhaustion that felt like drowning. Before she started waking up 3 hours past her alarm with her mouth tasting like copper pennies and her body feeling like it had been used by someone else. Before her coworkers started asking if she was okay because she kept losing her train of thought mid-sentence. Before Diane stopped calling as much because Kendra kept canceling plans, too tired to leave the house on weekends. Before Kendra realized the fog wasn't stress. It wasn't grief. It wasn't her body punishing her for failing at motherhood. It was theft. The pattern began on March 14th. A Thursday. Kendra woke up at 11:47 a.m. She'd never slept past 7 in her life. Her alarm had gone off hours earlier, she had no memory of turning it off. Her mouth tasted like metal. Her tongue felt thick, swollen. Her body ached in ways that didn't make sense, like she'd run a marathon but couldn't remember running. She stumbled to the bathroom and saw it in the mirror first. A bruise on her hip. Deep plum color, the kind that comes from real pressure. 4 small marks arranged in a pattern. Fingerprints. Elias appeared in the doorway holding coffee. Morning, sleepyhead, he said. Rough night, huh? Kendra touched the bruise, feeling the tenderness spread. What happened? You got up to pee around 2. Pretty out of it. Bumped into the dresser on the way back. I don't remember getting up. Elias laughed gently, the way you laugh at something harmless. You were sleepwalking. Dead to the world. I should have helped you, but I was so tired. You know how I am once I'm out. She nodded. Accepted it. Because what else made sense? Her husband was standing there with coffee, concerned, explaining something that had a logical answer. Why would she doubt him? But then she opened her phone and checked her sleep tracker app, the one she'd been using religiously for 2 years. It showed 3 hours and 42 minutes of sleep. She'd been in bed for 12 hours. She stared at the screen for 30 seconds, trying to make the numbers align with what Elias had told her. They didn't. So she deleted the app. Just removed it completely. If the data didn't make sense, maybe the data was wrong. That was her first choice. Delete the evidence that something was off. Believe him instead of herself. 3 weeks later, April 4th. Another Thursday. Kendra woke late again. When she went to do laundry, she found her underwear inside out in the hamper. She stared at it for a full minute, trying to remember undressing the night before. Nothing. She tried to remember Elias undressing her. Still nothing. Just blank space where memory should be. Her hands shook as she turned the underwear right side out and put it back in the drawer. She didn't mention it. Didn't ask. Because what would she even say? I don't remember taking off my underwear. That sounded crazy. Maybe she'd been more tired than she thought. Maybe she'd just forgotten. People forget small things all the time. On April 22nd, a Monday, she met Diane for lunch at their usual spot downtown. They ordered salads neither of them ate. Can I ask you something weird? Kendra said. Diane grinned. Weirder than your thing about even numbers. Kendra didn't smile. Do you ever wake up and feel like you weren't really asleep? Like something happened but you can't remember? Girl, you're describing my entire ambient phase. Remember when I texted my ex at 3 in the morning about his aura? Kendra forced a laugh. Right. Yeah. You're just stressed, Diane said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. The IVF stuff, your mom's anniversary coming up next month. You're carrying a lot. Maybe you need to talk to someone. A therapist, I mean. Kendra nodded. Smiled. Accepted the explanation. But her fork trembled when she tried to eat. She noticed it and put both hands in her lap so Diane wouldn't see. May 16th, Thursday. They hosted a dinner party for one of Elias's colleagues and his wife. Wine, laughter, small talk about home renovations and vacation plans. Everything normal. Everything fine. Kendra, you look exhausted, the colleague's wife said halfway through dinner. Are you feeling okay? Before Kendra could answer, Elias jumped in. She's been so tired lately. Dead to the world by 10 p.m. most nights. The way he said, dead to the world, made Kendra's skin crawl. She couldn't explain why. It was just a phrase. People said it all the time. Burning the candle at both ends, huh, the colleague asked. I guess so, Kendra heard herself say. But she wasn't. She'd been leaving work at 5 for months. She'd turned down after-hours projects. She went to bed early. She had no idea why she was so tired, why her body felt like it was breaking down from the inside. That night, after their guests left, Elias brought her chamomile tea in the blue mug. His hand was shaking. Just slightly. The tea rippled. Are you okay? She asked. Long day. Drink up. Kendra lifted the mug to her lips. And hesitated. Something in her animal brain was screaming. A warning she couldn't articulate. A wrongness she couldn't name. Don't. 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 Then she drank anyway. Because he was her husband. Because good wives don't question acts of care. Because the alternative, that something was deeply, horribly wrong, was too big to hold. That was May. By July, she'd stopped trusting her own memory entirely. By August, she'd started wondering if she was losing her mind. By September, she found the videos. And realized she'd been right all along. By July, the fog had become a blizzard. Kendra's boss, Janet Morrison, pulled her into the office on a Wednesday morning. Janet had hired Kendra 6 years earlier, promoted her twice. They weren't friends exactly, but there was mutual respect. Kendra, is everything okay at home? Janet asked, closing the door. Yes. Why? You've been different. You missed the Morrison pitch meeting last week. You've been late 3 times this month. That's not you. Kendra's face went blank. She had zero memory of missing that meeting. It was a major client, the kind of pitch she'd been preparing for weeks. How could she have just not shown up? I'm sorry, she said. I'll do better. Janet leaned forward. That's not what I'm asking. But Kendra didn't know what to say. How do you explain that you're losing pieces of your life and you don't know why? At home, things were unraveling in ways she couldn't ignore anymore. She found her phone buried under the bed. 3rd time that month. She didn't remember putting it there. She didn't remember much about Thursday nights at all. They'd become blank spaces in her week, holes in her memory that she couldn't explain. Late one night, while Elias slept, Kendra locked herself in the bathroom with her laptop. She sat in the empty bathtub and started searching. Extreme fatigue causes women. Sleeping 12 hours still tired. Memory loss early 30s. Brain tumor symptoms. Am I going crazy? The search results terrified her more than they helped. Every article seemed to confirm her worst fears: early onset dementia, neurological disorders, psychiatric conditions. She cried silently, hands over her mouth so she wouldn't wake him. August 8th. Another Thursday night. Elias brought her the chamomile tea in the blue mug, same as always. "I think I should see a doctor," Kendra said. "About what?" "I'm so tired all the time. And I keep forgetting things. Important things. What if something's wrong with me?" Elias sat down on the edge of the bed, his face arranged in perfect concern. "Hey. You've been through a lot. Your mom, the IVF, work stress. Maybe you're just depressed. There's no shame in that. Maybe. Why don't you drink your tea, get some rest, and we'll talk about it in the morning. If you still want to see someone, I'll make the appointment myself. I promise." She nodded. Lifted the mug. And that's when she saw them. Tiny particles swirling in the tea. They shouldn't be there. Chamomile doesn't leave residue like that. For just a moment, clarity broke through the fog. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. And then she drank it anyway. Because if she didn't, she'd have to admit what those particles might mean. She'd have to face the possibility that her husband, the man she'd trusted for 8 years, was doing something unthinkable. And she wasn't ready. So she swallowed the tea and let the darkness take her under one more time. Between August and September, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every Thursday was circled on her calendar. Every Friday morning, she woke up with bruises she couldn't explain, soreness in places that didn't make sense, that metallic taste coating her tongue. Elias's office door, which had always been open, was now locked. His laptop, which had never been password protected, suddenly was. She found herself Googling marriage counseling in Houston at 2 in the morning. She started writing an email to Diane, then deleted it. She stood outside Elias's office door at night, hand on the doorknob, then walked away. She knew something was wrong. But knowing and believing are different countries. And she was standing at the border, too afraid to cross. September 12, 2:47 p.m. Thursday afternoon. Kendra left work early, told Janet she was sick. She was nauseous, anxious, her body vibrating with something she couldn't name. Elias was at work. The house was quiet. She needed tax documents. They were refinancing the house, and she needed last year's returns. Elias kept all their financial paperwork in his office, organized in labeled folders the way he organized everything. She tried the door. It opened. First time in 4 months. She stood there with her hand on the doorknob for a full minute. This was the threshold. Cross it, and everything changes. She could turn around. Get the documents another time. Respect his privacy. Trust him the way wives are supposed to trust husbands. But she didn't. She chose to know. The office was immaculate as always. Desk organized, file cabinet labeled. His laptop sat open on the desk, unlocked. He'd forgotten. Or gotten comfortable. Or maybe, on some level, he wanted to be caught. She sat at his desk. Typed 2023 in the search bar. The autofill drop-down appeared, and her world stopped. 2 a.m. upload complete. 2 a.m. footage backup. 2 dissolved tablets sufficient. 2 guys Houston area willing. Her hands started shaking. She clicked the first result. A folder opened. Car maintenance, Honda 2019. They drove a Toyota. They'd always driven a Toyota. Inside the folder, 37 video files. All timestamped Thursday nights. All between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. She clicked the first one. March 14, 11:58 p.m. Her bedroom appeared on screen. Their bed. And herself, body positioned wrong, head tilted at an angle necks don't naturally tilt, mouth slack, arm dangling like dead weight. This wasn't sleep. This was something else entirely. Elias entered the frame wearing the Northwestern alumni shirt she bought him for his birthday. He checked her pulse. Clinical. Routine. Like he'd done this 1,000 times. Then he turned toward the camera and gestured to someone off-screen. Go ahead. A stranger walked into frame. Kendra didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just whispered, "Oh my God." Then again. "Oh my God." Then faster, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." The garage door groaned open downstairs. He was home. 2 hours early. "I need you to stay with me. I know this is hard to hear. But Kendra's story doesn't end here. What happens in the next 7 seconds will determine whether she survives this. If you're still here, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me you're here for her. Because what happens next will haunt you. His footsteps echoed downstairs. Keys hit the counter. Babe? You home? Kendra had maybe 90 seconds. She grabbed her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly that the first 2 photos came out blurred. She steadied herself against the desk and tried again. The video thumbnail. The folder name. The file list. Evidence. She needed evidence. Kendra. His voice drifted up from the kitchen. She yanked open the desk drawer labeled K, Recipes. The cruelty of that label would hit her later. Right now, she just needed the USB drive she kept there for meal planning. She jammed it into the laptop. Copy files. A progress bar appeared. 8%. 14%. She had to cover her tracks. Browser history, deleted. Folder closed. The coffee she'd spilled earlier, she wiped it with her sleeve. The progress bar crawled forward. 42%. 51%. Footsteps on the stairs. She was out of time. The download was only at 68%. 73. If she stopped now, she'd have nothing. If she didn't stop, he'd catch her at his desk with a USB drive full of videos showing what he'd done to her. She chose to finish the download. No matter what. 79%. 84%. The door swung open. Hey. Elias said, smiling. The same smile from their wedding photos. You're home early. Kendra's voice came out steadier than she thought possible. Felt sick. Came to get the insurance card. His eyes moved across the room. The desk. The spilled coffee. The laptop, positioned at a slightly wrong angle. 89%. 94%. Want me to make you some soup? He asked. That would be nice. He stepped toward her. Everything in her body screamed to run, but she didn't move. 96%. 98%. Oh, I spilled coffee earlier, he said, noticing the stain. Let me grab some tissues. He moved to the desk. Grabbed tissues from the box next to the laptop. His back was to the screen. Kendra's heart hammered in her throat. Her hand hovered near the USB port. Copy complete. Her hand moved in what felt like slow motion. Ejected the drive. Palmed it. Slipped it into her bra while he wiped the desk, making small talk about his day, completely normal. Like nothing was happening. Like he hadn't just almost caught her discovering the truth. You look pale, he said, turning back. Why don't you head to bed? I'll bring you some soup and tea. Kendra looked directly at him. Actually, I think I'll just rest on the couch. I don't want to be alone right now. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe. Or recognition. She'd never said that before. In 8 years of marriage, she'd never asked to not be alone. Is that okay? She added. Of course. But something had shifted. On some level, he knew. Not consciously maybe, but some predator instinct was telling him the prey had changed. That night, 9:47 p.m., Elias brought soup and tea in the blue mug. The same mug her mother had given her. The same mug he'd been using for 7 months. "Thank you," Kendra said. She lifted the mug to her lips. He watched. She pretended to drink. Mimed the swallow. The tea stayed in her mouth, bitter and wrong. He turned to grab the TV remote, and she spat the liquid into the succulent on the side table. The plant her mother had given her. The one that had been slowly dying for 7 months. Now she knew why. By 11:34 p.m., Elias was in bed snoring. He thought she was unconscious next to him, drugged and helpless like she'd been every Thursday for the past 7 months. But she wasn't. She was lying perfectly still, breathing slow and steady, wide awake. Waiting to see what he did when he thought she was under. At 11:52, he got up. She felt the mattress shift. He checked her pulse, professional and practiced. Then he lifted her eyelid, checking for responsiveness. She didn't react. Didn't flinch. Academy Award level performance. At 11:58, he left the room. She heard the office door close down the hall. At midnight, Kendra got up. Silent. She grabbed her keys, her purse, the USB drive. She wrote a note on the kitchen counter, couldn't sleep. Going for drive. K. It would establish normalcy. By her time. 12:34 a.m. CVS parking lot on Westheimer Road. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The parking lot was empty except for her car and one other. She sat there with her phone, searching for answers she was terrified to find. Can you test for date rape drugs at home? How long does Rohypnol stay in urine? Statute of limitations sexual assault Texas. Do I need a lawyer before going to police? Then she typed, what happens if I just drive away and never come back? That search sat there for 5 minutes. Her hand hovered over the search bar. Cursor blinking. She could disappear. Start over somewhere else. Pretend this never happened. Then she deleted it. At 1:18 a.m., she was in the CVS bathroom with a drug test from the pharmacy shelf. Her hands shook as she opened the package. She peed in a cup, dipped the test strip, and waited. 2 pink lines appeared. Positive for benzodiazepines. She stared at those lines for 20 full seconds. Then the ugly crying started. The kind where you can't breathe. The kind where your body realizes what your mind already knew. She sat on that dirty bathroom floor for 40 minutes. And the whole time, she kept thinking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe there's another explanation. Because believing the test meant believing her husband, the man she'd loved for 8 years, the man she tried to have children with, the man she trusted with everything, was a monster. And she didn't want to live in that world. But she was already living in it. She'd been living in it for 7 months. At 2:04 a.m., she washed her face in the sink. Stared at herself in the mirror. Then she Googled, Houston Police Department Sex Crimes Division. 1200, Travis Street. 16 minutes away. She sat in the parking lot for another 30 minutes. Engine off. Hands gripping the steering wheel. She could still turn around. Go home. Pretend she never found the videos. Take the tea every Thursday and never ask questions. But she didn't. At 2:47 a.m., Kendra Miles walked through the doors of the Houston Police Department and asked to speak to someone about a sexual assault. A patrol officer took her initial report and called for the Sex Crimes Division detective on call. She chose to know. She chose to act. She chose to survive. 7:13 a.m. Houston Police Department, Sex Crimes Division. Detective Lauren Whitfield had been in sex crimes for 9 months. Before that, she'd spent 6 years in property theft, stolen cars, burglaries, things that could be replaced. She was 32 years old with a coffee stain on her blouse and dark circles under her eyes from working a double shift. She was still learning how to carry the weight of every story that walked through her door. Kendra walked in holding a USB drive in her shaking hand. "My husband has been drugging me," she said. "There are 37 videos on this drive." Whitfield felt every instinct in her body brace for what was coming. "Okay. Let's go somewhere private." In the interview room at 7:34 a.m., Whitfield inserted the USB drive and opened the first video. She kept her face professional. Neutral. Taking notes. Second video, her jaw tightened. Third video, she paused it. Took a deep breath. Fourth video, she got up, walked to the trash can, and threw up. She came back to the table. Eyes red. "I'm sorry," Whitfield said. "I shouldn't have." Kendra's voice was completely numb. "It's okay." "It's not. None of this is okay." Whitfield's hand shook as she closed the laptop. "How long has this been happening?" she asked. 7 months. Every Thursday. "And you had no idea?" Kendra's voice broke. "I knew something was wrong. I knew. But knowing and believing are different things, and she couldn't finish." Whitfield leaned forward. "Hey. Look at me. You did the hardest part. You're here. And I believe you." Those 3 words mattered more than anything else that would happen that day. At 9:22 a.m., a nurse named Patricia performed the rape kit. She was in her 50s with gentle hands and the kind of face that had seen everything but still chose kindness. Kendra sat in a paper gown while Patricia documented 17 bruises in various stages of healing. 4 on her inner thighs. Fingerprints on her hips. 2 on her wrists. 3 on her lower back. 1 on her collarbone. "Did he ever restrain you?" Patricia asked. "I don't know," Kendra said. "I wasn't awake." Patricia's hand rested on Kendra's shoulder. Gentle pressure. Solidarity without words. By 11:47 a.m., the supervising detective, James Holloway, was reviewing the evidence. He was 52 years old with 20 years in sex crimes. He'd seen every variation of evil that humans could inflict on each other. He maintained a poker face because if he didn't, he'd break. He watched 3 videos without expression. Then he turned to Whitfield. "How fast can we get a warrant? Judge Morrison is on duty. If we move now, 2 hours." Holloway looked at Kendra. "Where is he right now?" "Work. He's in meetings until 4. We move before he gets home. Before he has time to destroy anything." At 2:47 p.m., the tactical team and digital forensics unit executed the warrant on Elias Miles's house. They found cameras hidden in the bedroom. A smoke detector. An air purifier. An alarm clock. All recording. All backed up to the cloud. They found 3 bottles of Rohypnol, 60 tablets total, with forged prescriptions. Elias had scanned his doctor's signature and printed fake prescription forms. They found a dosage journal where he'd recorded dates, amounts, and what he called effectiveness notes. They found an encrypted messaging app with 43 distinct contacts. Conversation logs going back 19 months, longer than the videos, which meant this had been planned long before it started. Pricing discussions. Scheduling. Preferences shared about what these men wanted to do to an unconscious woman. And they found a handwritten journal. March 14th, first session. 2 milligrams sufficient. Subject remained unconscious throughout. Participant satisfied. $400. April 4th, 2 milligrams plus alcohol. Longer effectiveness. 2 participants. $900. May 16th, subject beginning to show suspicion. Reduced to 1.5 milligrams to ensure morning functionality. Effectiveness maintained. He documented everything. Every dose. Every man. Every dollar. But the most devastating discovery came when Holloway and Whitfield started reading through the encrypted messages. Not all 43 men knew Kendra was unconscious. Some of the conversations showed doubt. "Does she know?" one man had asked. "Of course. It's her fantasy," Elias had replied. "Can I see proof?" "Here are her texts agreeing." And Elias had forwarded fabricated text messages, created to look like they came from Kendra's phone. Holloway looked at Whitfield. "Some of these men are victims too. He lied to them. Made them believe they were participating in consensual activity." "How do we tell which is which?" Whitfield asked. "Carefully." At 4:12 p.m., Elias arrived home to 4 police cars in his driveway. His face showed no shock. No fear. Just resignation. He'd known this was always a possibility. "Elias Miles, you're under arrest for—" "I want my lawyer," he interrupted. The only words he said. As they put him in handcuffs, he looked directly at the camera Whitfield was holding. "She's sick. She needs help. I was trying to help her." His defense was already forming. "She's mentally ill. This is all fabricated." At 6:34 p.m., back at the police department, Kendra sat in the victim services room. A social worker brought her tea. She stared at it. Didn't drink. Whitfield entered the room. "We found everything. Cameras, drugs, messages with 43 men. And a journal." "What did it say?" Whitfield hesitated. "Are you sure you want to?" "Tell me." He documented every session. Dates, dosages, what happened, how much he was paid. Long silence. "He sold me," Kendra said. "Yes. To 43 men. Some of them didn't know. He lied to them, told them it was consensual roleplay. Showed them fake texts." Kendra laughed. A broken, horrible sound. "So they raped me by accident. I know that doesn't make it. Does it matter? Whether they knew or didn't. I'm still," she couldn't finish the sentence. Kendra put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. But she wasn't crying. She was beyond crying. She was somewhere words couldn't reach. 3 days later, September 15th, Detective Lauren Whitfield sat in her office going through the 43 contacts from Elias's encrypted messaging app. The team was trying to determine who knew Kendra was unconscious and who had been deceived into believing this was consensual. One message thread stood out. The username was TeacherDad2010. March 10th, "Is your wife really okay with this?" Elias Miles, "Absolutely. It's her fantasy. She's shy about asking herself." TeacherDad2010, "Can I talk to her first?" Elias Miles, "She prefers to stay in character. Here, I'll show you her texts." The fabricated messages supposedly from Kendra read, "I want this so badly but I'm too embarrassed to say it out loud. Please just let Elias arrange everything." TeacherDad2010, "Okay. If you're sure she's sure." Detective Holloway looked at the screen. "Find TeacherDad2010. Bring him in." The next day, September 16th at 10:22 a.m., 2 detectives arrived at Riverside High School in Northwest Houston. They found David Park during his prep period, grading chemistry tests in an empty classroom. He was 41 years old, married 15 years with 2 kids, ages 9 and 12. He coached Little League. He was PTA treasurer. He was a completely average man who had made a terrible mistake. "David Park?" Whitfield asked. He looked up, confused. "Yes. Is everything okay? We need to ask you about Elias Miles." The color drained from his face. He knew. On some level, he'd always known this moment might come. In the interview room at 11:15 a.m., Whitfield spoke carefully. You participated in sexual activity with Kendra Miles on March 14th of this year. David's voice shook. He said she wanted it. He showed me texts from her. She never sent those texts. She was drugged unconscious with Rohypnol. David stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. He stumbled, caught himself on the table. What? Kendra Miles was drugged. She had no idea any of this was happening. No. No, no, no. He said, he showed me. Holloway's voice was firm. He lied to you. The texts were fabricated. She never consented. David's legs gave out. He sat down hard. Then lurched toward the trash can and threw up. At 11:34 a.m., he sat with his head in his hands. Oh my God. Oh my God, what did I do? What did Elias tell you? Whitfield asked. David was crying now. That she had a fantasy. That she was too shy to ask for it herself. That it was all consensual. Did you have any reason to doubt him? No. He seemed completely normal. He talked about her like he loved her. He showed me their wedding photo. They looked happy. Did you pay him? $400. He said she wanted to feel valued. I thought it was weird, but he explained it as part of the fantasy and I. Long silence. I raped her, David said. You were deceived. I raped her. He was shouting, then his voice dropped to a whisper. It doesn't matter if I knew. I did it. He couldn't finish. His entire understanding of who he was as a person was shattering in real time. We're going to need your testimony, Holloway said. Yes. Whatever you need. Anything. You'll have to face her in court. Describe what you did. David's voice broke. I know. You'll lose your teaching job. Your marriage may not survive. Your kids will find out. He wiped his eyes. I know. Then why are you willing to do this? Because she deserves justice. And because living with what I did, even though I didn't know, that's my punishment. But her getting justice? That's the only thing that matters now. 2 days later, September 18th, Whitfield met with Kendra in the victim services room. One of the men wants to testify, she said. He didn't know you were drugged. Elias showed him fake texts, convinced him it was consensual fantasy. Which one was he? Kendra asked. March 14th. Kendra closed her eyes. The first one. His testimony would help. It shows premeditation. Shows how calculated Elias was in deceiving everyone. What's his name? David Park. He's a high school chemistry teacher. Married, 2 kids. Does his wife know? He told her everything. She's processing. Long silence. You want me to sit in a courtroom and listen to a man describe what he did to my unconscious body, Kendra said. His testimony would help convict Elias. But I won't ask you to do anything you're not ready for. Will he describe details? The prosecution will keep it as clinical as possible. But I'll still have to hear it. Yes. Kendra stared at the wall for a full minute. What happens to him legally, she finally asked. If he testifies, the DA might grant immunity. If not, he could face charges. So my choice is, listen to him describe raping me, or send him to prison for something he didn't know he was doing. I'm sorry. I know that's impossible. Kendra's voice came out steady. Okay. Okay, what? He can testify. You're sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. Why? Kendra looked directly at Whitfield. Because Elias doesn't get to destroy anyone else. Not me. Not David Park. Not his wife. Not those kids. This ends. Later, Kendra would say that people think survival is passive, like you just wake up one day and you're healed. But survival is choosing, over and over, to keep going even when stopping would be easier. That day, she chose. November 7, 2023. Harris County Criminal Courthouse in downtown Houston. The prosecutor was Amanda Zhao, 38 years old, wearing a red suit that commanded attention. She'd spent 12 years in the sex crimes division and had built a reputation for one thing: believing victims when everyone else found reasons not to. The defense attorney was Richard Garrett, 55, in a charcoal gray suit that projected respectability and authority. His retainer was $40,000. He'd made his career destroying victim credibility, and he was very good at it. Elias sat at the defense table in a navy blue suit, looking like someone's favorite uncle. He wore glasses he didn't actually need, a sympathy accessory his lawyer had suggested. The jury would decide Kendra's reality. 7 women, 5 men, ages 26 to 67. On day 1, Zhao stood for her opening statement without notes. Elias Miles didn't just rape his wife, she said. He erased her. For 7 months, he stole her reality. He made her doubt her own mind. He turned her body into a commodity while she slept beside him, trusting him. And when she finally discovered the truth, he didn't apologize. He didn't confess. He called her mentally ill. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see videos. You're going to see journals. You're going to see encrypted messages. And you're going to ask yourselves, how does a person do this to someone they promise to love? I don't have that answer. But I have the evidence. And the evidence is undeniable. Garrett stood for his opening, calm and reasonable, like your friendly neighbor explaining a misunderstanding. My client is a good man caught in a nightmare, he said. Kendra Miles is sick. Genuinely, tragically sick. And in her illness, she has fabricated a story so horrific that you want to believe it, because if you don't, you'd have to admit a woman is capable of this level of manipulation. The videos? Consensual roleplay between husband and wife, filmed with her knowledge. The drugs? Prescribed for her insomnia. The messages? Kendra's idea, her fantasy that she now regrets. And when that regret became shame, she created this story. Because it's easier to be a victim than to face what you've done. I ask you to look at the evidence objectively. And when you do, you'll see, this is not a case of abuse. It's a case of a woman scorned. Kendra's face remained expressionless. Detective Whitfield had warned her this would happen. But hearing it still felt like being drugged all over again. On day 3, Kendra took the stand. Mrs. Miles, can you describe a typical Thursday night? Zhao asked. I'd get home from work around 6. Make dinner. We'd eat, watch TV. Around 9:30, Elias would make me chamomile tea. Did you ask for this tea? No. He just did it. Said I worked too hard. Said it would help me relax. And did you drink it? Every time. Why? Kendra's voice broke. Because he was my husband. When Garrett cross-examined her, his strategy became clear. Mrs. Miles, you've been diagnosed with depression, correct? Yes. And anxiety? Yes. And you were prescribed Ambien for insomnia? For 2 months, over a year ago. So you have a history of sleep issues. Objection. Relevance, Zhao said. Get to your point, counselor, the judge warned. Mrs. Miles, isn't it possible that your fog, your memory loss, was simply side effects from past medication combined with stress? Kendra looked directly at the jury. I'm certain I didn't consent to being drugged and raped by my husband and 43 strangers. Objection. Inflammatory, Garrett began. Sustained. The jury will disregard, the judge said. But they wouldn't. They'd heard it. Garrett continued. You claim you had no memory of these encounters. Correct. But you remember finding the videos? Yes. Convenient, isn't it? You remember the evidence, but nothing that might contradict your story. Kendra's voice rose. I remember waking up with bruises I couldn't explain. I remember my body feeling used. I remember thinking I was losing my mind. Is that convenient enough for you? No further questions. On day 5, Dr. Patricia Nguyen, a toxicology expert, testified about the drug test results. Benzodiazepines, consistent with rohypnol, she said. At the concentration found, the subject would have been unconscious for 6 to 8 hours. Could she have consented while under this influence? Zhao asked. Absolutely not. At this dosage, she would have been incapable of speech, movement, or memory formation. On cross-examination, Garrett asked, but couldn't she have taken this medication herself? The bottles found in the home were prescribed under a forged doctor's signature. So no. On day 8, David Park took the stand. He looked like he'd aged 20 years. Zhao walked him through his story. How he met Elias on a vintage car forum. How Elias had messaged him privately about a fantasy. How he'd been shown fabricated texts and wedding photos. And you believe this was consensual? Zhao asked. Yes. David was crying now. God help me, I believed him. When did you learn the truth? When detectives came to my classroom. Told me she'd been drugged without her knowledge. That she never consented. That he couldn't finish. That you what, Mr. Park? David looked at Kendra for the first time. That I raped her. The courtroom went silent. I'm so sorry, he said, still looking at her. If I had known, if I had any idea, I would never. I have to live with this for the rest of my life, and that's what I deserve. But you deserve protection. And I failed you. We all failed you. Kendra's face showed tears streaming, but also something else. Someone taking responsibility. When Garrett cross-examined, he suggested David was lying to avoid charges. David's voice hardened. There's nothing convenient about this. I destroyed a woman's life. I destroyed my family. I lost my job. My kids won't look at me. My wife is in therapy because of what I did. And yet you're not being charged. Because I'm telling the truth. David shouted. Mr. Park, the judge warned. I have to live with what I did for the rest of my life, David said quietly. Even though I didn't know, I did it. Can you imagine being used as a weapon to hurt someone? Can you imagine that? No further questions, Garrett said. Because what could he say to that? On day 12, both sides gave closing arguments. Then came the wait. November 19th. After 11 hours of deliberation, the jury returned at 3:47 p.m. Kendra sat in the courtroom, hands shaking. Whitfield took one of them. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor. 14 counts, each read individually. Count 1, aggravated sexual assault. We find the defendant guilty. Count 2, sexual assault. We find the defendant guilty. Elias's face showed no change. Completely blank. All 14 counts. Guilty. Whitfield whispered, Kendra. You okay? I don't know what I feel. You don't have to know yet. Later, Kendra would describe that moment as feeling nothing. Not relief. Not vindication. Just vast, empty quiet. Like her body had been holding its breath for 7 months and finally exhaled. But the air felt wrong. Because guilty verdicts don't undo trauma. They just witness it. December 9th, 2023. 3 weeks after the verdict. Kendra stood at the podium in the Harris County courtroom. Elias sat 20 feet away in an orange jumpsuit. This was her victim impact statement, her chance to tell him what he'd taken from her. Her voice shook as she read from the paper in her hands. I want to tell you what you took from me. But I don't think you have the capacity to understand. You didn't just rape my body. You raped my reality. You made me doubt my own mind. You turned my exhaustion into evidence that I was broken. You made me apologize for being tired. For forgetting things. For waking up with bruises. I thought I was going crazy. And you let me think that. Do you know what it's like to live in a fog you can't explain? To feel like you're drowning and everyone tells you you're fine? To look in the mirror and not recognize your own life? You did that. For money. For power. For whatever sick thing you needed that I couldn't give you awake. And when I found out, you called me mentally ill. That was the last violation. You tried to steal my truth. I don't know if I'll ever sleep through the night again. I don't know if I'll ever trust tea. Or Thursdays. Or men who say they love me. But I know this, you don't get to define me anymore. I'm not your victim. I'm not your wife. I'm not your anything. I'm Kendra. And I'm still here. And you'll spend the next 30 years knowing you couldn't destroy me. Judge Patricia Morrison had been on the bench for 40 years. She'd sentenced murderers and child abusers. But something about this case had broken through her professional armor. Mr. Miles, she said. I've been on this bench for 40 years. I've sentenced murderers. I've sentenced child abusers. And you are one of the most dangerous men I've encountered. Not because you're violent. But because you're not. You're calm. You're organized. You're the man at the PTA meeting. The husband at the dinner party. The guy who helps his neighbor jumpstart their car. And that's why you're so dangerous. Because you don't look like a monster. You look like everyone's husband. You didn't just violate your wife's body. You violated her reality. You made her doubt her own mind. You turned her into an object while she slept beside you, trusting you. And you documented it. Profited from it. Created a system to sustain it. You don't get to destroy anyone else. The sentence, 30 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. No parole eligibility for 15 years. Lifetime sex offender registration. No contact with the victim. $47,000 in restitution for estimated therapy costs. Elias's face showed nothing. No remorse. No fear. Nothing. And that was the scariest part. 6 months later. June 2024. Kendra's new apartment was in the Montrose district of Houston. Not a house, an apartment. Second floor with large windows. She'd installed 3 deadbolts herself, watching YouTube videos until she got it right. That mattered. Doing it herself mattered. Her morning routine had become sacred. She woke at 7 a.m. and the first thing she did was acknowledge that she remembered waking up. That simple fact mattered more than most people could understand. She made coffee in a drip machine, not a French press. The French press was buried in a storage unit along with everything else from before. Miles Davis played in the background, but now it was So What instead of Blue and Green. She couldn't listen to Blue and Green anymore. It sounded like before. She reached for her coffee mug. Her hand hovered. She took a deep breath. Then she drank. People asked if she was healed, like healing was a destination, a place you arrive and then everything's okay. But healing wasn't a place. It was a practice. It was choosing to drink your own coffee even when your body screamed don't. It was trusting yourself again, one sip at a time. The cost of survival showed itself in ways both big and small. Some nights she woke at 3 a.m. and checked the door locks. All 3 of them. Then checked again. Then checked again. Some nights she checked 17 times before she could convince herself they were locked. At coffee shops, if a man sat too close, she'd move. If he moved closer, even coincidentally, she'd leave, abandoning her coffee untouched. Her therapist, Dr. Rebecca Santos, asked how she was sleeping during their weekly sessions. "Some nights I get 4 hours," Kendra would say. "That's good now." "And the Thursdays?" Long pause. "I stay at Diane's on Thursdays." She tried a yoga class once. When the instructor said, "Trust your body," Kendra left mid-class. Because how do you trust something that lied to you for 7 months? Or maybe Elias lied to her body. She still wasn't sure which. How do you trust something that betrayed you, even when it was betrayed too? Kendra's process of reclaiming her reality had become methodical. She kept a journal now and wrote down everything, even small things. Woke at 7. Made coffee. Drank it. Chose to drink it. That matters. Went to grocery store. Bought tea. Threw it away in parking lot. Not ready yet. Thursday. Stayed at Diane's. Survived. She photographed herself daily. Proof she was awake. Proof she was choosing. Every morning, she marked her calendar with the date, time, and what she remembered. She was rebuilding trust in her own mind, one entry at a time. Because Elias hadn't just stolen her body, he'd stolen her ability to trust her own perception. For months, she'd thought she was losing her mind. And that's what she was rebuilding now. Not safety, but the belief that she could trust herself to know what was real. At 10:47 one morning, the doorbell rang. Kendra froze. Checked the peephole. It was Diane, holding a succulent. She opened the door, unlocking all 3 deadbolts. "I brought you a plant," Diane said. Kendra smiled slightly. "The last one died." "That wasn't you. That was him. This one's yours." They sat by the window. Coffee for Kendra. Tea for Diane. "How was Thursday?" Diane asked. "I stayed awake." "The whole night?" "Every minute." "That's good." "Is it? Or is it just trauma?" "Maybe it's both. Maybe that's okay for now." On Kendra's kitchen counter sat an envelope. Return address, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. From Elias. It had been sitting there for 3 weeks. "You gonna open it?" Diane asked. "I don't know. Want me to read it first?" Kendra thought about it. "No. I want to throw it away without reading it. But I keep not throwing it away." "Why?" "Because maybe there's an apology in there. And maybe I need to hear it. And if there's not, then I'll know I didn't miss anything." After a long pause, Kendra stood and picked up the envelope. "Here goes." She opened it and read. Her face changed. Not shock. Resignation. "What does it say?" Diane asked. Kendra's voice was flat. "He still thinks he did nothing wrong. He says I manifested this situation through negative energy. That I needed to be freed from my inhibitions." She put the letter down. "He's never going to apologize." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Now I know." Kendra walked to the kitchen, fed the letter into the garbage disposal, and turned it on. Watching it shred felt good. Later that afternoon, she told Diane, "I'm thinking about going back to work." "Really?" "Not the same company. But somewhere. I need to be Kendra who works, not just Kendra who survived." "You sure you're ready?" "No. But I'm doing it anyway. Because survival wasn't passive. It wasn't something that happened to you. It was something you chose, over and over, even when you weren't ready. Especially when you weren't ready." The next morning, Thursday, 7:14 a.m., Kendra made coffee. Drip machine, not French press. Simple. Hers. Miles Davis played softly. She poured coffee into a new white ceramic mug. No cracks. No history. She lifted it to her lips. Hesitated. Every cell in her body screamed, "Don't drink it, not safe, never safe." But she drank anyway. Because sometimes courage isn't big moments like testifying or confronting or leaving. Sometimes courage is just drinking your own coffee. Trusting that you made it. That you're in control. That you're awake. This was her coffee. Her apartment. Her life. Her choice. And she was choosing to trust herself again. Elias Miles is currently serving a 30-year sentence at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. He will be eligible for parole in 2039. 27 of the 43 men identified in the investigation were charged with various counts of sexual assault. 14 were found to have been deceived by Elias and were granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. David Park received immunity and continues therapy. His marriage survived. He now volunteers with organizations supporting sexual assault survivors, using his experience to help others understand how perpetrators manipulate and deceive. Kendra Miles continues her recovery. She asked that we share her story to help others recognize the signs of drug-facilitated assault and understand that healing is possible, even when it feels impossible. Thank you for watching. Stories like Kendra's aren't easy to hear, but they're essential. If this video opened your eyes to the realities of drug-facilitated assault and coercive control, please subscribe to this channel. We bring you true crime stories that matter, stories that educate, that raise awareness, and that give voice to survivors who deserve to be heard. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Leave a comment below telling us what you think, and if you know someone who needs to hear Kendra's message, share this video with them. Her courage in telling this story might save someone else's life. Thank you for bearing witness.